My name is Isla Bennett, and everything changed the moment my mother looked at me and said, "Your sister needs the wedding venue more than you." The words hit me like ice. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just went completely still. That venue wasn't just another booking. It was my dream. A beautiful oceanfront estate with glass walls, white stone floors, and sunsets that painted the sky every evening. I had spent 3 years saving every extra dollar until I could finally pay the $28,000 deposit in full. It was non-refundable, but it was worth every cent. Then my younger sister got engaged. Overnight, my wedding stopped being mine. "She's younger," my mother said during dinner without even looking at me. "Her timeline is more important." My father nodded as if it were common sense. "You've always been the reasonable one, Isla. You can adjust." My sister didn't even pretend to feel guilty. She kept scrolling through her phone, already imagining herself walking down the aisle I had paid for. Beside me, my fiancé gently squeezed my hand. He didn't say a word, but his silent support gave me strength. I looked around the table at the people who had spent my entire life teaching me that sacrificing my happiness was what good daughters did. For the first time I refused. "I'm not giving her the venue," I said quietly. My mother's expression turned cold. "You don't have a choice." That night, I lay awake beside the man who had never asked me to make myself smaller for anyone. That's when I realized something important. They might be able to take the wedding plans, but they couldn't take our future. By sunrise, I had made a decision they would never expect. I canceled everything. The florist. The photographer. The live string quartet. My mother insisted we needed to impress the family. One by one, I removed my name from every reservation and every contract. Every confirmation email felt like taking back something that had always belonged to me. My sister was the first to find out. He called screaming. "What did you do?" "That venue is mine." "It was never yours," I answered calmly. "And now it belongs to no one." Minutes later, my mother called. She was furious. "You're humiliating this family. Do you have any idea what people will think?" I looked down at the packed suitcase waiting beside the door. For the first time in my life, I didn't care what anyone thought. My fiancé walked into the room carrying 2 passports. He didn't ask whether I was certain. "Our flight leaves in 4 hours, he said with a smile. "No wedding venue. No guests. No family arguments. Just the 2 of us." At the airport, I switched off my phone. The silence that followed felt peaceful, almost sacred. As the plane lifted into the sky, I felt years of pressure disappear. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was freedom. My family believed canceling the wedding meant I had lost. They had no idea I had already chosen something far better. Hours later, flying over the Indian Ocean, I knew I was about to marry the one person who had never tried to control my life. By the time my family realized what they had thrown away, it would already be too late. The Maldives felt like another world. Warm ocean air surrounded us, and the endless blue water was nothing like the chaos we had left behind. There were no schedules. No wedding planner. No relatives telling me how my day should look. Just us. That afternoon, we walked barefoot across the beach. My fiancé took both of my hands. "Are you sure you don't regret any of this?" he asked softly. I smiled. "I only regret waiting so long to choose myself." His eyes filled with warmth. We exchanged our vows beneath the open sky. No decorated aisle. No audience. No interruptions. Just 2 people promising to love each other honestly. It was everything I had ever wanted. Later that evening, back in our villa, I finally turned my phone back on. Within seconds, the screen filled with missed calls and countless messages. My mother. My father. My sister. Then I noticed a voicemail. After long pause, I pressed play. My mother's voice came through the speaker. For the first time, she didn't sound angry. She sounded shaken. "Isla, where are you?" My mother's voice trembled through the voicemail. "The venue is gone. They said you canceled everything. Your sister's wedding is in 2 days. You can't do this to us." I stood on the balcony, staring at the endless ocean. The waves rolled in without hesitation, untouched by anyone's expectations. They still believed this was about them. They still didn't understand. It never was. I set my phone aside without replying and listened to the quiet around me. For the first time in months, my chest felt light. No pressure. No arguments. No one demanding another sacrifice. Just peace. My husband stepped onto the deck carrying 2 glasses of champagne. He noticed the phone but didn't ask who had called. "They'll figure it out," he said with a gentle smile. I nodded, not because I cared whether they understood but because I had finally stopped needing them to. A few minutes later my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from my father. "You made your point. Call your mother. Asterisk asterisk." I read the words and remembered every time I had been expected to apologize for problems I never created. I typed one sentence. I didn't make a point. I made a choice. Asterisk asterisk. Then I turned my phone off again. Hours later, curiosity got the better of me. When I switched it back on, the first thing I saw was a photo. My sister stood outside the venue. The doors were locked. The decorations had been removed. Guests stood outside, confused and whispering. Her beautiful wedding dress suddenly looked less like a dream and more like a burden. At that moment I realized something they never expected. They hadn't just lost the venue. They had lost control over me. The next morning my mother called again. This time I answered. I didn't say hello. I didn't soften my voice. She was already crying. "Yes, please," she whispered. "Your sister is devastated. People flew across the country. That venue was supposed to be hers." I closed my eyes and let the words pass over me. "It was never hers," I replied. "She's family," my mother pleaded. "So am I." Silence filled the line. Finally she spoke again. "You could have let her have it. You're the older sister. You understand sacrifice." For years, sacrifice had meant giving away pieces of myself so everyone else could stay comfortable. Not anymore. "I understand making my own choices," I answered. She took a slow breath. For the first time I think she realized she no longer knew the daughter she had always expected to obey. "Where are you?" she asked quietly. I looked across the bright blue water toward my husband, the only person who had never asked me to become less than I was. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Then I ended the call. My husband slipped his arms around my waist. "You okay?" he asked. I smiled. Thousands of miles away my family's plans were falling apart. Meanwhile my real life was finally beginning. 2 days later the messages changed. The anger was gone. Now they sounded desperate. My sister called first. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You ruined everything." I stayed silent, letting her speak. I already had the dress. The guests were invited. I pictured everything happening there. It wasn't heartbreak I heard. It was disappointment over losing the perfect image she had imagined. "I never took anything from you," I said calmly. "I simply stopped giving away what was mine." She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She just ended the call. That silence told me everything. Later my father sent another message. "You've embarrassed this family. People are asking questions." Asterisk asterisk. I looked at the screen and remembered every moment they had chosen her happiness over my dignity. This time I didn't explain myself. I didn't defend my decision. And I certainly didn't apologize. Instead I took a picture of my bare feet resting in the warm white sand, with the turquoise ocean stretching endlessly in front of me. The sunlight caught my wedding band as I held my hand toward the ocean. Beside mine, my husband's shadow stretched across the white sand. 2 people. Side by side. Equal. I took a photo and sent it to my father. No caption. No explanation. No apology. Just the truth. For the first time in my life he didn't reply. When we returned home a few days later, everything felt different. Not happier. Just quieter. The little house we had rented before the wedding still carried the scent of fresh paint mixed with the salty air that clung to our luggage. I placed my suitcase by the door and looked around. Then I noticed something. No one had called. Not my mother. Not my father. Not my sister. Years ago that silence would have filled me with fear. Now it felt like freedom. Later that evening, curiosity led me to open social media for the first time since we had left. My feed was filled with photos from my sister's wedding. But they weren't taken at the venue she had wanted. They were outside another location. Guests stood on the sidewalk with uncomfortable smiles. The ceremony had been moved to a much smaller hall at the last minute. There were no ocean views. No glass walls. None of the picture-perfect setting she had imagined. People noticed the difference. People asked questions. For the first time, the perfect image my family had worked so hard to protect began to fall apart. Not because I exposed them. Because I stopped protecting them. My phone vibrated. One message. From my mother. You've changed. I looked at the screen for several moments before replying. Oh. I finally stopped disappearing. Asterisk asterisk. I sent the message and didn't wait for a response. A week later, an envelope arrived. There was no return address. Only my name, written in my mother's familiar handwriting. Inside was a single photograph. It showed me standing barefoot inside the original venue months earlier, smiling as the sunset reflected through the glass walls. I remembered that day. It was taken before the venue stopped feeling like my dream and started feeling like someone else's. I turned the photo over. On the back, my mother had written one sentence. We didn't realize what we were asking you to give up. I sat quietly holding the picture for a long time. Not because it erased the hurt. Not because it repaired our relationship. But because it confirmed something I had already accepted. They had never truly seen me. Not until I finally walked away. That evening, I placed the photograph inside a drawer and gently closed it. Not with anger. Not with forgiveness. But with acceptance. My husband walked into the room carrying 2 cups of tea. He didn't ask questions. He didn't expect answers. He simply sat beside me. Outside, life continued as always. Inside, everything finally felt still. My family believed losing the wedding venue was the greatest loss. They were wrong. The real loss was the version of me they could always control. The daughter who never argued. The sister who always gave up what was hers. The woman who quietly disappeared so everyone else could shine. She was gone. And this time, she wasn't coming back.